Crusaders, we are lied to all the time. Our perceptions are manipulated intentionally. I just got two quick examples here before we get to our main topic. Today, it's confirmed beyond all confirmation necessary that Hunter Biden laptop was real. But remember when it first came out during the campaign, it was Russian disinformation. You remember all of the how hard it was hit against this. The social media accounts were locked out. New York Post couldn't even go onto their Twitter account. It was right, the whole thing. Check this out. If you Google right now, and I did this, if you Google HHS whistleblower Project Veritas or anything similar to that, this is what comes up on Google. I've never seen this before. It looks like these results are quickly changing. And then it doesn't give the website the Project Veritas. That's unbelievable. Just one of countless examples of how the media can manipulate your perception. And one of the big ones that's been going on for a long time is guns. Right? We're told that guns cause murder, and we never hear about the self-defense. I want to go to John Lott Jr. wrote a wonderful article, Real Clear Investigations. There are far more defensive gun uses than murders in America, and here's why you rarely hear them. He is from the Crime Prevention Research Center. Mr. Lott, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Good to talk to you. Let's start off with some numbers, then we'll get to the why. What are some numbers we need to know?
Well, so far this year, there have been something about 1,000 news media reports on defensive gun uses. Virtually all of those are in local newspapers around the country. But even those cases really give a very selective view on how defensive gun uses occur. What murders are considered more newsworthy than woundings, and woundings are understandably considered a lot more newsworthy than, let's say, a woman brandishing a gun and the criminal running away. If you look at the news stories they're covered, 43% of them involve the attacker being killed. 42% of them involve the attacker being wounded. And only 4% of those involve brandishings of guns. And yet, when we look at the data from researchers, the ratios are the opposite. About 95% of the time that people use guns defensively, it merely involves brandishing. But, if you're an editor of a news bureau and you have two stories, in one case there's a dead body on the ground, in another case a woman brandishes a gun and the criminal runs away, no shots fired, no crime actually committed, yeah. I think we all would probably make the same decisions on what's newsworthy, but it has a real impact on people's perceptions.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So how does one calculate any of this stuff? And this is hard. I mean, it's hard for COVID to calculate things accurately, and it's hard for stuff like this. I remember reading a lot about like mass shootings. Well, what's a mass shooting? Right? How do you even calculate that? Is it 4 people dead, 5 people dead, 3? Like, how do you calculate this type of stuff?
Okay, well, you bring up a lot of different points there. The way researchers and the government goes and tries to figure out, let's say, the number of crimes that occur, there are 2 ways they do it. They look at reported crimes to police, but we know a lot of crimes aren't reported. In fact, on average, less than half of violent crimes are reported to police. And the way they know that is to go and do these massive surveys that are out there. And when you look at surveys, you're going to find, in the vast majority of them, about 700,000 to 3.5 million defensive gun uses. Most of them are around 2 million times a year that people use guns defensively in order to try to stop crime. But, the vast majority of those, as I said, aren't going to be considered newsworthy type cases. With regard to mass public shootings, there are a lot of different definitions out there, as you say. The FBI's traditional definition has been 4 or more people killed in a public place, not involving some other type of crime. What they're trying to get at there are the types of cases that get news coverage, where you have an attack at a school or a mall, where the point of the attack is to go and just to kill or harm as many people as possible. There are other numbers that are out there, something from the Gun Violence Archive that is constantly used by the media, involves 3 or more people shot. They could be wounded, and it involves overwhelmingly other crimes, particularly fights among gang members, over drug turf. Those are important types of cases. But to lump together, I think, cases where that are newsworthy, they're newsworthy for a reason, where somebody goes in and just trying to kill innocent victims versus gangs fighting against each other over drug turf. It really gives people a misimpression. So when you hear these claims about one mass, shooting a day that's occurring, those, you're talking about like 85% of those are really just gang fights over drug turf.
Yeah. And then also a lot of times they lump in suicide in there as well, which is obviously a different thing. Super interesting. I got so many questions here, but I want everyone to just read the book and check out your group to learn more. Let me just end with this. How do we get the truth out there? How do you get people to see the unseen? Right?
Right. No, it's understandable why the media covers a lot of the stuff that it does. But, when the media goes and has an airline crash, I think nowadays anyway, they go and mention in the news story how rare it is. You look at things like the coverage of mass public shootings that you were mentioning before. I wish once in a while the media would mention things like it occurred in a place where guns are banned. Because about 95% of mass public shootings occur in places where guns are banned. These killers may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. Their goal is to try to go and kill as many people as possible. And if they go to a place where victims aren't able to go and defend themselves, the successful attacks are going to be more successful. My guess is that the entire debate that we have right now would be very different if the media would once in a while, because they mention things like how the person got the gun or what type of gun was used. Often those facts are wrong in the initial news stories. The simplest thing for the media to go and check is whether or not a gun was allowed in the particular place where the attack occurred or not. The other thing with regard to mass public shootings is people have this perception that the United States is unique in terms of the rate that these attacks occur. In fact, if you look worldwide, the United States makes up a little bit less than 1% of the mass public shooters, even though we make up almost 5% of the world population. We're way below the world average. It's just attacks even in Europe or other places that occur just don't get news coverage. You may have missed just a couple days ago, there was a big attack at a university in Russia. It got briefly one little news story and then was gone from the news. Most people.
Yeah, that's.
Sorry.
I hate I gotta cut you off, Mr. Lott. Sure. I apologize. We got to run, but that's so fascinating. Just blows my mind people's perspective, how perspectives are formed, and how important it is for all of us to get the truth out there. I'm grateful for you. Go get the book, everyone. Gun Control Myths. The Crime Prevention Research Center, Gun Control Myths, and there's latest articles on Real Clear Investigations. Mr. Lott, thanks for your time and your work, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So many people are just misinformed. True story. Thanks later. Spread the word.